and just telling me, thank you. Would any of you mind? Oh, Caroline, you look very jazzy down there, darling. I'm not sure what's going on with the screen, but don't worry. As long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. Would any of you mind coming on and just telling me how you got on with the beginnings of a studio clear out that we did this week? I think Louise did a big, oh, she's not here. Oh, yes, you did. Yes, there you are. You did a big clear out, did you, Louise? Yeah, I think was it you that did one? You need to just come off chat, my angel. Sorry, not off chat. Of audio silence. Mute. That's the word.
Okay. Um,
Hi.
hi. No, I went to do one,
Mm,
and I started to get everything all together,
yeah.
and then I didn't get any further, I have to admit.
Well, do you
Yeah.
know what? Starting to get everything together is a start. I mean, it takes time. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but I think it's just such a good process to go through and see what stories you can find in the work you already have to hand. So, well done you, my darling. So this week we are going to be talking about pricing without panic. Without, oh, it all feels so icky and horrible and blah blah blah. Um, and once again, this is a share from my studio to yours. This is just what works for me. Okay, so I've kind of gone through all of that. I think my main message here is that your tummy knows. Your tummy knows. Pricing is not just maths. It's a kind of emotional and a physical and an energetic and a personal thing. Um, and we kind of know it in our tummies. We know it in our tummy. So all the time, I'm going to be reminding you to sort of check in with your tummy and see how that feels. Um, if we'll be talking about kind of over delivering, underpricing, over pricing and how that feels. And I'm going to be sharing with you the techniques that I use to have found and absolutely nailed my kind of pricing line, if you like. Um, so, you know, when you hear, oh, sometimes I don't know if I hear it so much anymore, but you used to say, there used to be a bit of a saying that, or whatever you're charging, stick on 20% and they won't notice. And then, oh, 20% extra. You just put that at, oh, you just go on up. And it's such a flippant thing to say. On the one hand, yeah, if you're selling widgets, maybe, but you're not. We're selling something that we make. And so it is actually kind of deeply personal. Um, and also remember last week we talked about how the work that we make the work that we um, send out and we sell allows us to make new work. It allows for new ideas and products to be made, to come up with new ideas. So it's about sustainable. Now, again, this is me. But my North Star, I think we touched on it last week. I like moving work on. I like selling work. I like the exchange. I like the freedom, the job doneness, if you like. I really like that, and it allows me freedom to go on and make a new collection of work. And actually, there's a little side note here, and that is if in your studio or your workspace you have bazillions of work stacked up, you're looking at loads and loads of work that's maybe come back from a show or is in your eye view when you're going in to make new work. That can naturally bring you down. It really does. I've tested it. So I think what I've done in the past is I now have a kind of like an overspill shed. My garden's like shed central. I've got sheds galore all hidden away. Um, But if you've got a spare room, put some under the bed, keep a record of them, obviously, you know you've got them. Keep some under the bed. Um, just try and take them out of your workspace. It gives you such a clearer mind for coming back and making new work. So the other thing that I do very successfully actually is that I've got two or three people that know and really enjoy my work. Um, So I do a bit of a revolving gallery with them. I've got a few pieces that I will just never sell. I don't want to. But I don't particularly want them sitting in one of my garden sheds, and I don't particularly want them up all the time in my face. I'm quite rare about hanging my own work in my house. Um, so what I do with those friends is to do a bit of a revolving gallery, and I literally just go and hang some pieces on their wall. And if it gets damaged, that's on me. But I know that it's warm. I know it's in their house. I know they're enjoying it. It can be a bit tricky when you phone them up and say, "Oh, that painting you're really enjoying, I've just sold," because it's on the website. Sorry about that. Can I have it back? But that's the name of the deal. I always call it giving lending pieces of work on a piece of elastic. So you've got it there, they get to enjoy it. And I've probably got, say, four or five families or places that I know really well and I do that with. So as a just a complete side note, please, please, please try and keep your workspaces clear of what it is you've got. Or stack it under blankets, stack it under anything. So it's just not in your eye line and you don't have that inevitable question of, well, why am I making loads of work when I've got all that work there to go? Forget that. That's doing its job. It's on its website. It will go at some point. Okay, so a little side note. So pricing is sort of realistic for me. I would say that's my kind of North Star. As we've already said, I like moving work on. That's back to being a commercial artist that we talked about in the first commercial applied artist. So we're going to spend some time today thinking about what goes in our pricing. And it's not just a canvas, it's not the art, it's your backstory. Your backstory as an artist. People are really interested in what you do. They're interested in you, the artist, you, the human, the hand that made it. They're not only interested in the piece of work, even though that's beautiful. When they buy a piece of your work, they're shaking your hand and saying, really nice to meet you. I'm going to let you into my life because you're going to go home with me on the wall. And they're interested. So I'd like to do a couple of minutes, a little exercise. And I would like for you to just, in no particular order, I would like you to spend, I'm going to set a dinger, 3 minutes, just writing about your backstory. What was your backstory? Did you work in chartered accounting? Were you a nurse? Were you a bricklayer? Anything that goes, just write it down. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes from now. Jot it all down. Well done, everybody. How's your paint? How's your hand? Pushed you through it there, I know. Um, I think the most important thing to say is that nothing we've lived is wasted in art. It's one of those rare careers that the more you add to your story, the more interesting. So, would anybody like to come on just very briefly and tell me what did they have any surprises there, or what they can see in their list that perhaps links to today? Actually, Claire, I'm wondering about you. Because, hi, darling.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I loved art and I loved music, and I studied both of them. I studied both of them at university and did a joint honours, which you could construct yourself at Lancaster, which was great. And then I did a master's in musicology at
Okay.
Oxford, and but I looked at art and music crossover, so I studied a lot of uh, uh, fin de siècle Paris ballet
Yeah.
and designs and all the rest of it, and some David Bowie as well, which didn't go down as
Nice.
well. And then I did my teacher training to please my mother. How? Why? Why? But
Very
um,
good though.
in art and English was my second subject for teaching. And because I didn't want to sign on and live with my parents, I went and taught in a Jesuit boarding school for 10.5 years.
Wow.
But I taught art, I did boarding duties, I
Yeah.
had a baby, all living in this mad place. But with the art teaching, I also did quite a lot of art examining.
Okay.
And I think that has been key for me because what it does is it absolutely hones
Yeah.
or well, the teaching hones your own skills anyway,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And the art examining, it sounds very dry, but essentially what you're trying to do if you're a good art examiner is to draw out
Hmm.
the marks for your
Yeah.
student and the students. So I did a lot of pupil referral units, for
Yeah.
example. And people would go, but there's nothing here of any quality. And I go, just could you just give me some tea in an hour and
Yeah.
I would be trying to draw out grades and marks for these kids who
Brilliant.
wouldn't get anything else. Yeah, and that now why is that important? Because it hones your eye, it
Hmm.
hones uh, you have an empathy, a curiosity for what other people are making.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not, does any of that make sense? So
I
that's
think that no, it's perfect, Claire, because what
yeah,
Claire is doing now is that she's an artist in her own right, very well established, beautiful work, but she's also opened a gallery. So of course that
offline.
speaks to the whole story,
Yeah,
which is great. Thank you, Claire. That's
that's
gorgeous,
okay.
darling.
Yeah.
Nancy, you had something completely different, didn't you, darling?
Did I? What did I do?
Didn't you teach, didn't you do something way back when which was very different?
I've had, yes, some might call it a checkered past, but it's just an. um, I did a geography degree,
Uh-huh.
but ended up making hats to pay my way through university, and
Lovely.
then became a hat designer because that seemed to be going really well.
Yeah.
So that was my first business when I was sort of 19 to 23. And then just like Claire, ended up to please my mother going and doing a teaching qualification,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
but still in the sort of geography line.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, teaching, I knew teaching was never going to be for me really, but it did take me into the charity sector. So I'd spent 30 years working in the charity sector, running major fundraising campaigns, which, now I realize was all part of the creative
Yes.
bent.
Yeah. And all of those elements, fundraising, teaching, they all come into what we do today.
Yeah, it's all about communication, isn't it?
It's
Really, but
about
in different ways.
communication. But here's the thing, here's the important thing that all of our backstory really adds to the depth and the steadiness of the work today. It gives it a weight. And in fact, the older you are when you come to doing art, I think the more interesting you are. Actually, it's not only the older you are when you come to do art, it's one of those rare careers that the older you are, the more interesting you are. We really need to celebrate that. I've read multiple times that particularly women in their 60s, if they're still making work, they get a fantastic response because there seems to be 50s is apparently a bit of a dearth. I don't know why. But 60s, you're rocking and rolling in the art world because, people feel like, wow, she's still going. She's really obviously been around the block a few times and knows what she's doing. So it's one of those rare careers that actually our backstory adds to our depth and the steadiness of what it is that we're doing. Even if we change mediums, techniques, whatever we do, people are interested in us. They're not necessarily interested in just what we're doing. Okay. And that doesn't matter whether you've got 4 clients or 40, doesn't matter. People are interested in us. So I think it's important to say there's no need to explain this to our clients. It's just for us to know. And it's for us to know that our backstory is actually already in our work. It's already in our work, our lived experience, the good bits, the shit bits, the really tough bits. All yes, you're absolutely right. The older you are, the more experienced you are, and that matters in art. So let's step forward and kind of be proud of all our stories, no matter what we did. They are all there in our work. So realistic pricing. I've got your workbooks, and in it, we're going to be talking about time, energy, art materials, your backstory, and your overheads. So, time obviously is your hours making the piece of work. It's also about the research and the thinking time. I remember doing a course 100 years ago, and it was all about time proficiency or something, I don't know. And it was about, they were saying, when you're on holiday with your kids, and you're kayaking, if your head is in work and you're thinking about work, you're working. And that slapped me around the face like a wet fish because, my mind was always on work. Um, I'm not, I'm much better now at switching off, but actually my mind was always on work. So if I'm going to be full on all the time, I need payment for that. I need some sort of recognition. So again, that kind of goes into my story, not so much anymore. So time, making, research, thinking, energy of making a piece of work, your physical effort. Were you standing on top of a ladder with, using a sweeping brush as as you're painting? Are you using bazillions amounts of energy in using this piece of work? Emotional, was it very thinky? Was it very deep? I always say thinky. I love that word. My husband laughs at me a lot. Concentration. Did you need to go deep? Did you need to really keep your eye on it? Recovery time. You finish a piece, you think, I'm absolutely knackered. You don't know whether it's going to sell, yada, yada, yada. Doesn't matter. It's all thinking time. Art materials, an estimate of what you've used, an estimate. So I understand this can be really confusing because people used to say, oh, Nancy, I see you. People used to say to me, how much did it cost to make that painting? And I think, well, it's really difficult because I didn't use a whole pot of green. I used some green. So if the pot of green was 10 quid, I'd probably use 2 quid of it. And that's the nearest you can get. So an estimate, your backstory, your experience, that's part of your piece of work. And your overheads, you've got to think about the heat, light, and power of the place that you work. Teeny tiny amount, but it still goes in. So in your workbook this week, I'm going to ask you to look at one piece of work you've just finished, one piece of work that you've done recently. And I'm going to ask you these key questions. How long did it really take me? And you can either put that in hours or you can put it in days. It's up to you. How did it leave me feeling? And could I comfortably repeat this? Which is what we talked about last week with our cash cow. So I think that this leads me nicely into, do you remember we talked about my samples of work? And in here, I can probably talk about my flower paintings, which is probably the best one. So this is a big, big canvas. In fact, if I turn the laptop around, you can see one of the huge canvases in front of me. So I'm going to just talk about one of these because it's a meter by a meter. It's lots and lots of layers. And there's a lot of painting out as much as there is painting in. So I've worked out that my painting rate for making one of these, knowing the speed that I go at, there's no right and there's no wrong. It's only what works for you. But my painting rate for making one of these is around £600 a day. And realistically, if I was in full flow, I'm pretty sure by now, I like to have 2 or 3 pieces on the same go, on the same sort of on the easel at the same time, so I can dance between them, pick one up as that's drying. I'm not losing momentum. I can go on another one. But if I were to condense it down to hours, which I have done, this probably takes me around 16, 17 painting hours, dedicated painting hours. However I do that, whether it's an hour here and then pick the kids up, or, a concentrated amount. I'm probably not going to do 17 hours in a water anymore. I don't think. Not if I want to get out of bed the next day. But say 17 hours, something like that. And that leads me to think, okay, so 17 hours is two sort of full-on days. If I was going to sell that piece, I'd probably be selling it for something around 12 to £1,800. So my painting rate is around £600 a day. That covers everything in terms of heat, light, power, art materials, thinking time, research time. Now, if I sell it for £1,800, then I've got a nice healthy profit on top of that. So my painting rate for my daily rate for painting is around 600 for painting flowers. So this is where we're going to kind of get to, because it's different for me as it will be for you, and it's different according to different collections. So obviously we've got my animals, we've got my drawings, we've got my dogs, but I tend to think that my North Star is around £600 a day for big detailed work. Okay. So in your workbook, I'm going to be asking you to sort of look at one piece and deconstruct it, if you like. Underpricing. Hands up, who has a tendency to underprice? Okay. Sorry, just hold up again so I can see. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for recognizing that, because that's really 3/4 of the battle. When we underprice, we are over delivering. Does that make sense? We're over delivering by underpricing ourselves. Now, we are all guilty of this, and you will all always, as artists, you'll sell something and you'll know in your tummy, you'll think, oh, bugger. Good. Oh, I'm really sad that piece has gone for 100 quid. Oh, I knew I could have got more. I wanted more return from the universe for the energy that I'd put in for making that piece. I'm happy it's going to be used. I'm happy it's going to be lived with, but actually, I would have liked something back more meaty for that. So your tummy kind of knows. When we give too much away, when we discount our work too much, are we people pleasing? Or are we thinking, phew, take it, take it, take it. I got away with that. Phew. Hooray! These are all experiences I've had before. Quick, quick, don't look back, don't look back. Oh yeah, walk on, walk on. We could be over delivering by overworking in our studios on one piece. We could be using all our really best materials, concentrating too hard for the piece. Does it warrant it? Not valuing our natural work, our natural flow, and being constantly available to your clients. So if your client is ringing you up saying, oh, I said I'd like blue. I'm thinking I might like orange now. And you halfway through painting blue. These are all experiences that I've had. So if we are over delivering, we're not putting up our boundaries. And it's really hard thing for artists to do. Really hard thing for artists to do. But if we're doing that, we're risking the following, which is being a busy fool. Does everybody know what that is? Yeah, please say if you don't. We become exhausted, knackered. We begin to lose the will. And we start to build up a resentment. And that resentment, I think when it's there, it's a sad thing, but you all you have to do, your power is in noticing it. You may not be able to go. I have, I'm sure, in the past, 100 years ago, gone back to a client and said, I said that painting would be £100. Well, actually, it's 150. It just doesn't work. You cannot do that. So negotiating is something we'll come back to. Please remind me to talk about negotiating. But as an exchange for something you make for somebody to buy should feel natural and good. It just should feel good. It should feel natural and it should feel good. I underprice my paintings, but not my prints. Okay, that's interesting, Ruby. I do something quite similar actually, or I used to. I always feel I have to apologize for the lack of paintings. Okay, let me stop you right there, sweetie. No more apologizing. Apologizing is people love original artwork. They also like prints. Prints do have their place. Prints are obviously at a lower price because they're the chips to the fish. So that makes sense. They're plentiful. You can, eat them, but the fish is the meat. The fish is the good thing in fish and chips. So the original artwork there is only kind of one of them. So I don't know if you remember, I think it was the last week or the week before we talked about why I don't tend to do prints anymore. And that is just because I found that I was far too in competition with my originals. The price that I could charge for my originals wasn't actually that far away from prints. Now that's just for me, and that's just for these types of drawings. And the dry points that I make on my press, which are different. But I found that they were in competition with each other. So that's a conversation that we should have. And buy small originals and end up beating myself about it, but they sell. The bigger works are not selling that regular. Okay, that's interesting, Lita. Lita, do you make prints or do you just you on here? Hello, darling. Do you make prints, sweetheart? Lisa. Okay. I underpriced my small originals. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to be a little bit braver, Lisa, and we need to push that price up a little bit. If you're selling, that's great, but just a little bit. And I'm talking £4, £5, just begin to nudge up and see what the feedback is. You don't need to go in for a whopping 50 quid. Just nudge it up a little bit more. If you feel that you need to talk to your clients, say the prices of art materials have gone up, and just begin to dial it up a tiny bit and see what happens. Test the water. I underpriced quite a few pieces I've only really started to sell quietly through word of mouth. I'm just going back into there and get back. I still don't, and to know, does my work sell? Brilliant. Well, Asha, darling, if it's selling, you're off. Doesn't matter how you're selling it. You could be selling at a car boot sale, you could be selling at friends, you could be selling in a gallery. I think for you, my angel, it would probably be a really good idea to start having chats with galleries. I think they're going to be really interested in your backstory, the fact that you studied graphics. I think that they're going to be really interesting. I think the feedback from the where you're going to be going, which is galleries, will probably be really helpful to you. So it might be a question of picking one or two galleries. Would I say going in and having a chat? You're in Cambridge, aren't you? So they can be fantastically rude. But yeah, they can. I've been there before. So it might be an idea to let's have a think about it together. But I think you're probably heading towards gallery sales or a website and all the rest of it. So just at the moment, you've done really, really well making sales, and you have to understand that people are buying, and that's really, really important. Apologizing is saying I don't think worthy enough of myself, so never apologize. Yes, you're right. I mean my hand-painted prints. Oh, your hand ones, darling. I understand my paintings, but not my. I underprice my paintings, but not my prints. So you make hand-painted prints. Brilliant. Well, it could just be that they're still they're in competition. So you're hand printing. I don't know if you're doing them in a number But I think your originals need to stand quite far away from that, and you need to make it really obvious that this is an original handmade painting. This isn't a print or even a handmade print. Okay, so just make sure you separate them on your website and you do big bells and whistles, original artwork. And actually, in my experience, original artwork always sells a little bit slower than prints anyway. A craft artist who pushed me to charge more for my work also pointed out that my underpricing affects other artists too. Oh, Denise, that's a punch in the guts right there, isn't it? I know when people do that, I really, really agree. I really agree with that. It's such a personal thing. Nancy's put a really good point. It can be really hard exhibiting alongside an artist who's selling at really low prices. Yeah, it is, but it also talks about where you are in that journey. You know, if you're quite new, you're not going to charge enough as much, say, as you, Nancy, because you've been doing it for a very long time. That's not to undervalue the artwork. I think it is a question of looking at the piece of work, doing the exercises that are going to be in the workbook, and checking in with your tummy. And also a really important question I ask myself quite a lot is, if I wanted it, could I afford it? That's important to me. Could I afford it if I wanted it? But then you need to remember that I'm a commercial artist and I make work to sell. So this is all about what aligns with me. It doesn't work for every artist. I mean, for example, Nancy, you sell a lot of work, and if you brought your prices down and it was too cheap, you'd be absolutely exhausted. You'd have a bun ton of orders. You'd be completely burnt out and exhausted, and it would be no good for man nor beast. So you kind of have to go up in your price, and your price shows that. So if you're at a fair and you're selling a piece for, I don't know, 780, and somebody's selling something next to 200 quid, actually they're more likely to come to you because they know you're established. They can see the story and the knowledge that you have. And remember when if you went past a really beautiful seascape and you saw it was 190 quid. Well, the first thing that would come to my mind is, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? And then I'd obviously be having a sharp word with the artist saying, right, we need to, so I think, again, it's about your backstory and it's what you're comfortable putting out there. It's what you're comfortable putting out there. Okay. So we talked about underpricing and over delivering, and we talked about, do you remember in the first workbook we did, we had our words, our value, what words were important to us. And I think it's important to come back to those words. One of those words for me, and again, it's incredibly important that we talk about this is a personal journey. One of those words for me is affordability and access. So that's one of the reasons I have different styles of work, because if people want to sort of buy in, they don't necessarily need to buy in by buying a greeting card of a big painting. They can buy in with, when I say buy in, that means sort of start the journey of becoming one of my clients. So they can start the journey with an original ink drawing, which is, say, £25. Well, it's probably more like 30, 35, 38. That is the kind of first buy-in. So I make sure that my pricing journey, if you like, begins with something affordable, and I make something for that price point that I feel really comfortable with, that I absolutely love, and that adds up for me to get a reward from it. So my dry points, I don't know if you know printmaking, but I can make 12 from one plate. They're very small. They're about A4. Each is signed and hand titled. And if I really went for it, I could make 12 in a day. I could probably make more than that, actually. So a full day working in the studio. Remember, we talked about my flowers. Full day working in the studio is around £600. So if I could touch that, even if it's in turnover and not profit, I'm kind of working to that amount. Again, that's just for me. What if you're at the beginning of your painting career? Yeah, of course, Caroline. I think this is an interesting time of suck it and see, I think. Um, it's about getting that feedback. You remember Asha earlier said that she's just starting to sell through word of mouth. I think when you're starting, you really need to be just observing what you're selling for. Have you sold some work already? And if where was the exchange comfortable? What sort of price point was the exchange possible? And I think because it's impossible for me to say, having not seen any of the work, but I think it's all about getting out to events, getting work sold, doing that exchange, seeing how it feels, and then you can go on from there. Okay. And actually, another thing about underpricing our work, it can be. You remember the £200 seascape I said, where I thought I'd be looking at it thinking, well, what's wrong with it? Is it in indelible ink, or is it going to fade, or what? Underpricing can be seen as a lack of confidence, and we need to put our big girl pants on here. So I made this. I always think that actually people get a bit of a really, when I had my gallery, I used to feel like actually people got a real bargain with art because it's something that's going to live with them. It's something that's going to be with them for years and years and years on their wall, part of their life, their story. And do you know what? If they're going to spend 1,500 quid on it, yes, that's going to ouch, but it's only going to ouch for a tiny amount of time. They have that piece of work forever if they want it. So, I think we do need to kind of get a bit brave and value our work ourselves and think, I didn't just make this up out of what we used to do with Blue Peter, on the back of a cardboard box, cereal box or something. I didn't make that. This is original artwork. This is work that I've made. So value it. Okay. And now we're going to talk about overpricing. And overpricing, I feel it can feel really misaligned in our body. It again, back to that feeling in your tummy. If I was going to, let's say I was going to take this drawing and I put it on my website actually websites, you're slightly one removed. You're slightly one removed. Let's say we're in a show and I've got this original drawing and somebody says, oh, I really like that. And I'll say, yeah, brilliant. Thank you. That's £900. And they're going to say, okay, yes. Okay, yeah, I'll buy it. Now, on the one hand, it's only human to go, quick, take the money, quick, quick, run. But you are going to have the feeling afterwards that that person might go to your website. Well, very likely to go to your website and see that actually it's really only £38. And B, it's going to create anxiety for me. It's going to start me overthinking. It's going to make selling feel forced, a bit uncomfortable. And it's going to disconnect me from my actual natural true audience. My actual natural true audience. And it genuinely is going to lead me to a feeling of it being false exchange. It's just not right. So my tummy would tell me. My tummy. And also, do you remember I told you about my lovely friend who I sold his work in the gallery, and he went to another gallery who really elevated his prices, and he was selling work for 20 grand a go, which is brilliant. And then the gallery went bust, and actually so did his business, because he could never come down and he could never sell his work for that amount of money. So, that was a really, really sad story. So I think that feelings of tightness is about, you need to tune in with your tummy when it comes to pricing. A little bit of icky excitement, fine, no problem. Be strong with it. A little bit of, I'm getting away with this. Oh, thanks. you need to notice that too, because that's telling you it's probably underpriced. So we are now going to be thinking about how our pricing isn't a declaration of worth. It's really not. It's not me saying I am worth da 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 because it will change, and changing is okay. It's a practical human decision that allows us to continue our jobs. Okay. And actually, all clients want to see is that your pricing is considered. That's the thing. If somebody comes to me and says, how much is that painting? And I say 500 quid. Now, psychologically, they're less likely to purchase it than if I said it's £487.50. Because the psychology of pricing tells us as humans, we need to know that that price is considered. We want to know that somebody has actually sat down and worked out the price rather than just picking it out the sky and going 500 quid. So they're more likely to purchase for £487.50. For the buyer to have confidence to invest, they need to feel the confidence the artist has in the work. You're absolutely right, Louise. They do. We need to, and we get that confidence from knowing our pricing, from knowing how long it took us, and all those questions. I've found that pricing transparency and consistency is vital. It gives confidence all around. You're absolutely right, Claire. When you have work in a gallery, it's an old point, but a good one. If you have work in a gallery or in, say, not on the high street or Holly and Co., your prices must marry up to your website. Do not have two different prices on them, because it looks, it's just not a good look. So just please make sure. I found that each time I work in a new way, style, subject, that it takes time to find its audience. I have to charge less for the newer ideas and build prices up slowly over time. Yeah, Nancy, that's spot on. So sometimes you have to take a step backwards to go forwards. I always find, again, this is just me, but I always found that if I introduced a new collection, it's really around 18 months until I'm absolutely motoring. So I might start to begin showing my clients this new thing. Again, you remember we talked about that Instagram flooding. Hey, here's a picture of a da 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 da, and this is me doing this now, and rah, rah, rah. So I'm sort of, it's quite considered how I might introduce that new kind of collection. But I wouldn't. I'm sort of thinking now about doing some landscape paintings, and it's years since I did any landscape. So I haven't done anything yet, but I might start gently introducing it to my clients, maybe in a blog post, maybe in just start gently introducing. So it's a bit like introducing a new friend to your really old friend, and you want them to get on. You want them to get on. You're like, oh my God, you've got so much in common and you're going to love each other. And then they kind of come to each other and go, yeah, nice to meet you. Because they don't know each other. So it takes time. But isn't it much more in a gallery because of their commission? I'm not sure how this works. Yes, Louise. Normally a gallery will take 50%. And actually they're welcome to that 50% because they've got to pay rent, staff, shows, all the rest of it. So if you've got a painting in your studio, for 200 quid and you give it to a gallery, you're going to get 100 quid. So, I mean, I didn't work with galleries for a very, very long time just because commission was, a bit ouchy. But actually now I'm finding it's really having its place because I can give them work, I can deliver them and just not think about it. It goes to their clients, they're doing the work on it. So it's 50%. So yeah, you would have to have your work on your website for £200 as well. I was told to price my work as if I were paying a gallery commission so that it would be the same price. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ruby. Absolutely. It's got to be the same price everywhere that you put it on the website, because otherwise the gallery will just get fed up with you and they'll drop you. And it's actually really hard to get a gallery now. Really hard to find a gallery that will take your work. So if you've got them, they're worth really nurturing. So again, coming back to what we said, selling allows us to make more work. Our bodies know. Notice, just notice how it feels. Boundaries mean you're professional, and overgiving isn't self-kindness to anyone. And a little example of that, I had a really, 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 really seriously amazing posh client. And they were a massive kind of celebrity, which was amazing. And they were a real kind of gateway to a new something for me. Oh my God, I just made such a complete prat of myself. I was so excited and thinking, I could have an exhibition in your house and you can invite all your celebrity mates and I'll be really, really rich. I didn't actually say that, but in my mind, I was thinking this. So this obviously stays within the group, but yeah, so basically I delivered the work and it was amazing and it was all very, very exciting to meet these amazing people. And they were saying such beautiful things about my work. And then they bought more and they bought more and that was lovely. And then on the last commission I did, I decided to put in all the preparatory drawings with the final piece. And I am so cross with myself because that completely undervalued me because they could take every one of those pieces of drawings and put them up in the house, which means that they wouldn't need any more artwork. I really did myself out of a trick there. And I, it's one of those sharp lessons where you think, oh man, I completely over delivered. But anyway, it's very nice. But now they've got no more work for any no more room for any more of my work. And the tide seemed to have passed, but it was a good learning curve, I can tell you. And the last point for today is something that I did that really helped me actually with my plotting and my planning. So you won't be able to see this, but I like to make a line. And on those lines, so I've got my most expensive piece of work here and my cheapest piece of work here. It's just a line. So my most expensive piece is about 2,000. It could be 2.5, whatever. So what I've done is to plot my line with my offerings, i.e. my flowers, my dogs, my narrative pieces, my dry points, and my drawings. They're my kind of major things that I'm not sure about the word collection, but they're my major offerings, if you like. And what I've done here on this line is just to plot them. So I've got £2,500 up here, and this is the range of my most expensive pieces. So these are my flowers. And this plot tells me that I tend to sell them from about 850 up to 2,000. So these are my big flower canvases. And then down here, I've got my green, which is under sort of 500 quid. Is my green range, which is my dogs, my dog portraits. And then in here, I've got my narrative paintings, which Nancy so beautifully said there are quite new. So they're down this end. Actually, I kind of feel like they should be there, 700-800 quid. But I just wouldn't sell any. I need to warm people up to the collection. So my narrative paintings are here for today. And then I've got my dry point dog drawings and my original kind of home drawings, which are around about the same price, the interiors of about, if I was doing a big drawing, probably the most expensive would be about 300. And then I've got down here these tiny little baby ones are my dry points, and they're around under 50 quid. So that just really helps. I put that line in your workbook. I mean, obviously you can always draw the line yourself on a big piece of paper. But actually, obviously I work in different hands. I work in different styles. So I find that really works for me. I would encourage you to not be adverse that just because you're working on something, you haven't got an idea for something else. You can still explore that and keep them going. Okay. I was told to price my I chose Claire. I charge per square meter plus commission tax, and any pain in the arse extra if applicable. Very Capricorn behavior, but it's transparent and consistent. Claire, that's absolutely brilliant. Claire brings up a really good point. Have you all seen these methods of charging by centimeter or inch? Okay, so there is a way of doing so that you would take your biggest piece and you separate it into centimeters, and then you bring that down. You end up dividing. So my big flower painting up here is 100 by 100, so that's 100 centimeters, and then you divide up the price. Say my this piece up here would be say 2000, so I would separate that down and you can go inch to inch. It's okay, it's an okay way of working. Actually, it's a brilliant way of working for you, Claire, because obviously you do a lot of corporate commissions and interiors, so it's very transparent. I didn't feel it worked for me, especially with the drawings, because they're so quick. But it is a method, and you can always have a look at that online. It's a good research tool. Centimeter, square inch, payment method for artists. Is it really important to work in collections? Really nice question, Louise. No, it's just important to me. It's just totally personal. When I say collections, it's not the right word, really. It's sort of different hands. Help me out with words here. It's different styles. I mean, as you can see, I've got my 5 different things that I do. They all work alongside each other. And it took me years to think I wasn't just going to fry my clients' brains with different works until people said to me, no, because you can see your hand in all of them. You can see it's your style. So it's perfectly okay to have different projects, maybe is a better word, but they can be long-running projects. It's absolutely fine, but just don't throw them all on your clients at the same time. Just divvy them up and be quite considerate of how you put them out there in the world. Okay. Do we have any further questions? And anybody like to share anything, they're very welcome to come on and just have a little share. Anybody have any aha moments, or is it all completely and utterly sunk in, or is it too much? You tell me. Okay. Well, listen, I once again, this is all about what works for me. I am so happy with my pricing now. I like having turnover. I like having business exchange, and it feels absolutely right. Do I ever reduce my work if it's old? Really good question, Ruby. Really good question. I do you remember we talked about my 20, 40 and £100 sale that I do every 2 years. That's that's how I tend to move old work on. I sort of gather it up and then do a big old jumble sale and take the money out that I've made making it. I've spent making it. People do reduce. I'm not a massive fan of it, to be honest. I do recognize that you have a set of paintings that you bring out to the world. You're really excited, or whatever it is, could be clay vases, whatever. And the really good ones, or you deem the good ones, sell. So you might have 3 or 4 pieces that just look a bit odd and they're on their own. And I personally feel, for me, it's stronger to gather all those pieces up together, unless they're in a 12-foot box in your studio, in which case you need to move it on. I think it's okay to reduce if it's a part of your website, if it's a part of something. But I think if you're just going to put it up on socials and say, this painting of daffodils was £22,500, but now it's, 50p, I'd have a problem with that. You mentioned in the last session markets as a selling channel and studio sales, but not the galleries. Can you elaborate on the way where to offer 300, £500 works? Obviously not. Okay, so a way of selling between 300 and 500. Is that right, Lisa? Yes, so galleries, galleries are really tricky at the moment. I think £300 to £500, there is room, but there is room at a market stall, but only as your top offering. So everything around it would be less than that. Um, I think at 300, £500, probably, where are you selling at the moment? Come on, darling. Where are you selling at the moment? Art trails, art fairs, open studios. Brilliant. That's what Nancy said. Yes, I think that's a really, really lovely point, Nancy. I think our open studios, people don't tend to come to open studios and expect to just buy a greeting card. So showing your work in studios and art fairs, there's a marked difference between an art market and an art fair. An art fair is, you have to pay to join them, but they get concentrated buyers that are looking to buy artwork around about that price. So definitely art fairs, I would look at those, not the really high-end fine art ones. Does that, Lita, message me if you want to, sweetheart, we'll talk about it. 2040, do I do that online or Insta or website? Limited time frame. Yeah, absolutely, Louise. Definitely every other year I do it on my website. It's a ball ache to load everything up, but my goodness, it's just so much fun. And clients love it. I push go at 6 o'clock on a Friday night. And I have people telling me they're sat there with a glass of wine and they're ready. It's really, really good fun. I do it every other year. And how do you find art fairs, etc.? You remember, Caroline, we talked in the first session, we talked about what sort of artist are we? So where you were going to sell work as a commercial artist or an applied artist or a craft artist is going to be very different to where you sell fine art sell fine art. So it really is a question of doing your homework. For me, as a commercial artist, I'm probably going to be looking at the Affordable Art Fair, Country Living Fair. So they're almost quite sort of they're what's the word, Nancy? They're not approachable. They're a sort of slightly more middle market. They still cost to join. You're still looking at least 2 or 3 grand, but you will sell work there. They really work hard on their venues. So accessible. Yes, that's the one. So here we are, my darlings. That's that for this week. Thank you so, so much. I'll send you your recording. Please listen again as you're working in your studio. I really feel that just allows, sort of embeds new thoughts as they come along. Your workbook will be with you. And I'll see you back next week. If anybody's got anything they want to say, just email me. And I hope that this is all helping, and loads of love. Mal, you and I are going to have a little chat, aren't we? So yeah, maybe you could just email your number and we'll do WhatsApp. All right, my darlings, loads of love.